Hello, hello. So, how well are you sleeping? And if you're not sleeping very well, what things might be getting in your way? So, welcome to Super Aging. This is a show about how to make changes now that will impact on the quality of your life right now, but also well into the future, setting you up to age well. I'm Marianne from One Life to Flourish. I'm a qualified master coach with a focus on mindset and wellness, and I'm an intuitive energetic healer. My real passion lies with helping women at midlife change their habits, their emotions, their beliefs, their spirituality, themselves, so that they can be open to an amazing world of possibilities and finding their purpose and passion. So, today's episode of Super Aging is about sleep again. So, this is part 2 essentially. So, I spoke last week about some important things that we need to change around our habits leading up to going to sleep, and a few things about how to set your bedroom up for successful sleeping as well. So today I'm going to look at a few other things. I'm going to kind of build on that idea a little bit. Now, the other thing I spoke a little bit about last week was our biorhythms, our body clock, and how not everyone has exactly the same body clock. And no doubt you will have already discovered that, because it's pretty obvious that that's the case. You know, when you look at when people get tired, when people go to sleep, when people wake up, there's a huge amount of variety. It's in this area, though, that you can actually get some extra information and some help. So there is a doctor called Dr. Michael Bruce, the sleep doctor, who has actually looked closely, he's obviously studied sleep, and he's actually looked closely at the different kinds of people, and he's worked out some particular categories that really relate to the biorhythms that we live by. And understanding what your particular pattern is about can actually help you to change your particular life, or maybe even daily habits is probably the better way to put it, so that it's actually more in sync. So to find out about this, I have put into the comments the link to his sleep quiz, which is entirely free and so on. Obviously, you give your email address, but it's useful information. And of course, you can always go, no, I don't want to receive this anymore. So that would be a good place to start if you're actually wanting to find out what your type is. And it is quite interesting, like things made a bit of sense for me when I did this actual quiz, even though, and this is still mostly the case, I can't at this point, due to the choices I've made around work, make all of the changes that I should in sync with my actual type. But it's good information, and it kind of takes a little bit of pressure off. So if you've ever, kind of thought, why can I not sleep the same as everybody else? Why can I not do what the scientists are telling me I should be able to do with my sleep? This could give you some answers. All right, so definitely take the quiz and get a little bit of information around that. And then if you find that interesting, there's also a book by Michael Bruce, which is called The Power of When. Fascinating book. So I'm not going to go any more into that today, because there's so much to it. It would be beyond my scope, actually, and kind of knocking into what Michael Bruce's research is all about. But go and investigate for yourself. So let me focus instead on some other things that are a little bit more general, that you can actually build into your lifestyle, maybe tweak some things and that sort of stuff. So I'm going to start with exercise. So if you've been watching Super Aging over time, you will know that there are some key things that I like to focus on. Exercise is one of them, because it is so important. So there are some key things to know about exercise and sleep. So, and this is, as always, based around research that's happened, because I like to make sure that, what I'm telling you is actually backed up by what people have discovered. So the essential thing is that morning exercise is the best if you want to improve your sleep. That's it. Okay. End of statement. Full stop. Now, this is generally like before 7 a.m. So you're kind of getting up, you're actually getting that early morning sunlight. Maybe that's part of why it is. Once again, sometimes, the researchers can find the facts, but they don't know necessarily the why behind the facts. What they do know is that if you are getting morning exercise, then that gives you the greatest bang for your buck in terms of what happens with your sleep. So people who exercise in the morning tend to have about 75% longer deep sleep, which is pretty amazing. Now, the opposite side of that, the thing to actually avoid is to make sure that you are not doing late evening workouts, or I'd say even really evening workouts. And this is the main reason for this. So it's been shown that actually, reduces your ability to sleep well, essentially. But the reason for this is probably around body temperature, because when you're, exercising, you're actually increasing your core body temperature. And your body then needs time for that to be lowered down, ready for you to go to sleep, because in whatever what your body rhythms are, when you go to sleep, you need the body temperature to be dropping, not rising, to help you go to sleep. So after you've done some vigorous exercise, this takes between 4 to 6 hours to actually happen before it kind of gets back to normal or to be on that downward trend. So if you exercise, say, at 8 o'clock in the evening, then your body temperature would not be going down until, depending on what your sleep habits are, but until you are already, well into bed trying to sleep. And that change in the body temperature is going to stop you from being able to get into sleep. Hope that makes sense. So on the plus side, and this is for me in particular, and probably a few of you as well, because I have to get up quite early to go do my job and get into stuff in the day. So I don't really have time to do a lot of morning exercise. So if I exercise in late afternoon, say around 4:30, then I am still able to be ready to go to sleep and have a good night's sleep by about 10 o'clock. So the impact of that is not quite as positive as being able to exercise in the morning. Shame about that for me anyway. But it still it still enables you to sleep quite well. So this is kind of related on the idea that exercise helps you sleep. It does, but you need to do it in the right way and not at the wrong time and so on. Now, an interesting thing, well, I found it interesting, was that if you actually exercise in the middle of the day, as opposed to, morning or late afternoon, there's actually no obvious impact on your sleep whatsoever. Exercise is still good, so you can exercise in the middle of the day, go for it, but know that it's not going to have an impact on your sleep. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about exercise. I've already talked quite a bit in other episodes about kinds of exercise and that sort of thing. So timing can be important. All right, let's have a little bit of a look at basically food, diet, that kind of thing. So I'm going to start with the thing that most gets in the way of sleep in terms of food-related stuff. So this is actually the importance of having a healthy body weight. So it has been found across numerous studies that the closer you are to your, ideal body weight, etc., then the more deeply you will be able to sleep each night. So definitely being obese, significantly overweight has a huge impact on how well you can sleep for a lot of reasons that I won't go into. So that's all I'm going to say. If you are really struggling with your weight and you are carrying significant amounts of extra weight, that may be a good and healthy place to start, as well as that being good for your overall health, especially seeing as we're talking about super aging. So I know that personally, when I lost quite a lot of weight, because once again, if you've been following this for a while, you'll know that, say, what was it, about 6 years ago, I was really in, the obese weight range. So when I lost, that, what was about 45 kilograms, my sleep patterns did improve. So it did have a noticeable impact on me from doing that. So I can recommend that. All right, but anyway, over and above that, food can be an interesting thing around sleep. So last time I sort of touched on avoiding certain things that will stimulate your body too close to bedtime. Let's look at the other side of it. What can you actually eat that may be good for you? So the first one, which is, possibly, these are not ranked, but possibly one of the most impactful kinds of foods, according to the research, is kiwi fruit. Yes, your little kiwi fruit. If you eat try that again. If you eat 2 kiwi fruit about an hour before going to sleep, what was found in the research was that people who did that fell asleep much more quickly than when they didn't have their 2 kiwi fruit. They slept longer and they experienced deeper sleep. So the why to that is, once again, one of those mysteries the scientists haven't quite worked out, but they feel that it is probably due to the very large range of vitamins and minerals that are packed into this little fruit. So if you enjoy kiwi fruit, that would be a good place to start. I have not had much success with doing that because of the way that I eat. More about that next week. Means that I choose not to have kiwi fruit a couple of hours, in the hour or so before bed. All right, let's move on to some other things though. So tart cherries, as opposed to lovely, delicious sweet cherries. So tart cherries, and particularly tart cherry juice, can also be a very useful thing. Now this one I haven't tried. I can't attest to it, but it sounded interesting, and I'm not 100% sure how I would go with tart cherry juice, but yeah, I might give it a go. So what they found was that people who drank 1 cup size of cherry juice, of this tart cherry juice per day, so it didn't have to be before sleep or anything like that. What they found was that those people experienced a change in their time asleep and also their sleep efficiency. So in other words, the things that were happening, during the time that they were asleep. And the most likely reason for this is because tart cherries actually have slightly higher concentrations of melatonin than a lot of the other food that we consume. So you could give it a go. Next one, guess what? That, old wives' tale of having a glass of milk before bed does actually have some possible benefits to sleep. Yes, it does. Now, this one, other than being like the anecdotal sort of stuff and the, traditional type stuff, there have been some small studies on this that seem to back it up. So milk by itself, yes, but they also did some experiments with malted milk, which when they're adding like a special malted powder with particular nutrients in it into the glass of milk. So both of those seemed to be beneficial for, improving your sleep quality. Now, milk does actually contain melatonin, so that's probably why it was beneficial. All right, my personal favorite is nuts. This is because I love nuts. So particularly your almonds, your walnuts, your pistachios, and your cashews have been found to help you go to sleep and stay asleep better. All right, so The exact amount does vary from nut to nut because they have the nutrients in there, including some melatonin, does vary between the nuts. I have found the best benefit at night with having either almonds or cashews. With the cashews, particularly cashew butter. Maybe that's just because I've had cashew butter. I don't know. But anyway, having that sort of in the evening, not necessarily just before I go to sleep, even though that's what they say. So I essentially just have like a small handful of them, and it seems to have an impact. Give it a go, especially if you like nuts. All right, other foods that can be useful to try are fatty fish and rice. And there's probably a few others as well that I haven't included here, but that's a good place to start. So kiwis, probably top of the list. All right, other things that you can do and can take. So these are kind of your supplements. So I have been taking, I suppose, herbal type sleep tablets, supplement tablets for quite a few years. In fact, this is what I basically did for many years before I made any lifestyle changes. And when I started taking them, they did have an impact. And that impact was definitely increased as I changed to a healthy lifestyle. So it kind of combined quite nicely. And you can find some really quite good, combinations of herbal supplements. So these are herbal supplements. And the reason I decided to take them is because I really prefer to not take medications if I can avoid it. So this is the way that I've gone. So research has been done on chamomile and valerian in terms of herbs. Chamomile has also got a very, very long, like thousands and thousands of years of anecdotal evidence around its impact. It definitely has a sedative effect, so it's a very good thing. And valerian is also a sedative, and it's been shown in trials to actually help if you have trouble falling asleep, and then if you have, I suppose, broken sleep. So if you have trouble staying asleep, if, something brings you out of your sleep. And there are other herbs around that, have a relaxant kind of effect that can also be useful. Now, there are also some other different kinds of supplements you can take. I haven't tried a lot of them. The main one that I've tried is magnesium. And I only recently started to try this. And the reason I started taking it was because it has been shown to have lots of other useful benefits to help with longevity. So I thought, let me take some magnesium. And then the side benefit was that it actually helped me to get into deep sleep much more readily and get, a better level or better amount of deep sleep than I was before, as well as REM sleep, I think, as well. Like both of those seem to improve. So even though my overall length of time asleep didn't really change, the quality of my sleep really changed. And I noticed it within like a week of starting to take magnesium. Just be careful with magnesium because you need to make sure that you are taking really good quality tablets in that way. Because there's, magnesium and then there's magnesium. So be careful with that. So another thing that I have tried myself and found personally very useful is actually hypnosis. And for those people who, know a little bit about me, I am a hypnotherapist. So I did hypnotize myself to get to sleep, to be, entirely honest about it. But I also have done it with a number of people, and they have had really quite impressive results when they've kept it up. So I have put together, I have got a program that's been around maybe for 12 months or so. A sleep soundly program is what I've called it. And basically the objective of it is to help you sleep soundly. And the people who have gone on the program and used it as prescribed have had really good improvements in sleep. So essentially it involves a session with me one-to-one, and then you receive 2 MP3 recordings to help support you with your sleep. So one of them is a personalized recording. One is just my general recording, but it's a cool one because you just kind of, it's like 10 minutes or so, send you to sleep. So this program is normally $299, but for people who respond to my program, or if you DM me as well, the price is currently $249. So seriously, a good way to go if you are a sleep struggler. Been there, done that, I know, and this can really make a big difference. So just need to reach out if you are interested. So remember that sleep is one of the most important things to focus on to help us maintain good health. So this is good health physically, mentally and emotionally, help good brain health, all of those things that then help us to have a good platform for aging really well, the longevity of the mind, I would say. So if you're not sleeping well, now is absolutely the time to do something about it. Do not put it off. Okay, so please join me next week when I'm going to be talking about fasting. So different kinds of fasting. So just generally fasting, intermittent fasting, and time-restricted eating, and why this is something that you could consider as part of a longevity lifestyle change. So this is one that has been on my radar for probably the last 12 months or more. So I've found some interesting stuff about that. All right, join me next week. I hope you have a really great week. Sleep well, be healthy, be happy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.